As an example, I was very honored. I was on the Dr. Drew podcast some time ago, and people were calling in while we were on the podcast. And one woman,
cool. I used to listen to that when I was a teenager.
Oh, no way.
Adam
Okay.
Carolla and Dr. Drew.
Yeah.
Dude, that's a big podcast. Congratulations.
I was very honored. He's a great dude. It was a great conversation.
Yeah.
And we were having live calls coming in. So a woman calls in, and she had gone through the Boston bombing and was navigating some post-traumatic stress around that. And we were kind of helping her, offering some advice. And at one point I say, all right, the next time you feel loud noise, I just want you to, because she was very hypervigilant, right? Loud noises.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just want you to sit and be with that. And she goes, yeah, but that's really hard. I go, I know it's really hard. You can't get to the other side of the post-traumatic stress without being with the discomfort of it. So the point is,
you've been through it yourself.
I have. But even that, like coming back to everything we've talked about, the judgment or the second darts. You know, when I came back from the war, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. I was struggled with survivor's guilt, hypervigilant of loud noises, didn't like being in crowds. I was told these were all symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. As I went down the rabbit hole of research and studying neuroscience, psychology, spirituality, after I hit that rock bottom moment of wanting to take my own life, I started realizing that the hypervigilance of loud noises, it's not a quote-unquote disorder. I spent 7 months in a war zone where loud noises meant death. Hypervigilance is a normal human response to said experience. So I started removing that identity of post-traumatic stress disorder and acknowledging, all right, I got post-traumatic stress. I don't control my hypervigilance, but I'm going to refuse that identity of disorder onto myself. I'm not going to ascribe that to myself because that creates a downward spiral of who I am. That's my identity. There's something wrong with me.
Yeah.
Right? Instead, I'm just going to acknowledge and accept and be with the isness of this. Got it. I got post-traumatic stress. Post-traumatic stress can just as easily be a source of post-traumatic growth. But the thing is, and Dr. Martin Seligman, he's one of the leading researchers in the positive psychology movement. He went to West Point, the military academy, and asked cadets, how many of you have heard of post-traumatic stress disorder? And something like 95% raised their hand. Then he asked them, how many of you have heard of post-traumatic growth? Something like 5% raised their hand. The point he makes, which is 100% true, we've created a self-fulfilling prophecy in this world that trauma, adversity, struggle leads to PTSD. Even here, when people hear I'm a veteran, and I get it, it's coming from a place of love, but there's this immediate assumption that, oh, like, poor guy, he's messed up. There's something wrong with him. And again, it's coming from a place of love, so I acknowledge that. But we've created a paradigm that says trauma equals disorder instead of adversity equals growth, instead of trauma equals growth, instead of suffering builds character, like, right? However you want a term you want to use. So starting with is being with the discomfort of it. And that's as simple. Like, if sometimes people ask me after an interview, like, what's one action people should take? Go lock yourself in a dark room for an hour. Just do it for an hour. Guarantee you, especially if you're new to this, you will struggle.
Yeah.
You will struggle tremendously.
Or sit it in 39-degree water in a cold bath.
Yeah.
For a minute or two.
Do that.
That's really hard for people
is.
if they've never done it.
It's
really hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Carl Jung says people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And our world could not be more accurate representation of that.
Yeah.
And not just the bad things of drinking alcohol, drugs, or binge watching Netflix. Sometimes even the positive things, working is just a way to avoid facing our own soul.
Dude, the majority, I was a personal trainer for 10 years. The majority of the fitness industry at that time, and I'm not in it now, so I can't say it now. Yeah. I'm sure my buddies at Mind Pump could be like, yeah, it's still the same. It was all about shining light on others, to be in service of others, but to keep the dark parts of yourself dark. That was my role as a trainer. Like 6-pack, shredded, 13% body fat, but none of the things of my own darkness or fear had I ever explored, really explored, because I was just using this kind of veil of being of service to others.
Check out some of the videos on this screen that are perfectly curated based on the video you just saw. Make sure you follow me, and I'll see you in the next video.